This is Keith Wojcicki, Global Head of Threat Intelligence. This week, we are joined by George Glass, Dave Truman, Ryan Hicks, and of course, our ransomware expert, Sarah Becker, all from our Cyber Threat Intel team. So today is March 18th, 2024, and we'll be covering the most recent trends that our threat intelligence team is witnessing in the trenches. So let's talk news you can use for March 18th. So several city councils in the UK have recently been hit by a cyber attack, the latest involving Leicester City Council, resulting in a large number of services provided by the council being taken offline, to include child protective services, as a proactive measure to protect the data for their customers. So this incident actually coincides with the accusation by a parliamentary committee that the British government is burying its head in the sand from a large cyber attack posed by ransomware groups. This city council has engaged local authorities and National Cyber Security Center to aid them with their cyber incident. So let's go back and talk about some AT&T breach activity. I know a lot of us have known about that for quite some time. A large data set reportedly affecting 71 million individuals claimed to be from the 2021 breach was disclosed by threat actor Shiny Hunters, who we know well. They were looking to monetize this data on a criminal forum for up to $1 million. So AT&T has continuously refuted that the data came from their systems, indicating no breach transpired. Well, another actor named Major Nelson released the data, including sensitive personal details. Inquiries by various cybersecurity experts verified some data accuracy through AT&T's direct link remains unsubstantiated. This underscores the enhanced risk for past and present AT&T patrons, emphasizing the need for vigilance against potential phishing and SIM swapping endeavors. So if you are part of this, keep your eyes out for sure. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact Kroll at cti@kroll.com. That's cti@kroll.com. So let's get into today's briefing. We'll be covering the following trends our team is concentrating on. George is going to walk us through some Patch Tuesday. Fortinet back again. Ryan's going to talk about that. The Magnet Goblin, even though it's out of season, Ryan's going to go talk about some goblins. The Malware Spotlight by Dave Truman, and then, of course, our expert Sarah Becker on our Ransomware Roundup. With that, George, I'm going to turn over to you for Patch Tuesday once again. What do you got?
Thank you very much, Keith. Yeah, third Patch Tuesday from Microsoft of the year. Nothing particularly interesting to report this time around. 64 vulnerabilities fixed, 18 of those tracked by Microsoft as critical, 18 remote code execution vulnerabilities, 24 priv-esque. Nothing particularly interesting really in there. I think the one that stood out the most to me, which I've included in the report, is CVE 2024-26198. It's got a CVSS score of 8.8, and this is a remote code execution vulnerability in Exchange. The details given by Microsoft are sort of vague, but according to Microsoft, it allows an attacker to load a remote DLL. It's unclear whether that's in the context of the Exchange server or the user that the attacker requires to click and access a remote DLL file. That remains unclear. As is typical with Microsoft Patch Tuesday information, very limited technical information has been shared, but we're going to keep an eye out for POCs of these vulnerabilities and any write-ups from the reporting parties that shared their vulnerability findings with Microsoft. But that's all for me this week. Thank you very much. Back over to you, Keith.
Thank you, George. Appreciate that. Ryan, over to you. We have another 0 day. With that, can you brief us on the 0 day? And then if you don't mind walking right into Magnet Goblin, we definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. So I just had a kind of a few updates surrounding new and existing Fortinet vulnerabilities. So just kind of bundling into one slide, really. So firstly is a new vulnerability. So this is a SQL command critical vulnerability, which is a CVSS of 9.3. It affects 40 client EMS versions 720 through to 722. And the vulnerability itself may allow an unauthenticated attacker to execute codes via specifically crafted requests via SQL injection. A proof of concept and technical write-up is due to be released soon, and we believe it's this week, by the team that identified the vulnerabilities, and therefore recommended to apply patching to any affected devices. And we'll obviously keep an eye out for when that additional information arrives, and inform of any kind of results of that as we deem necessary. The next one is, this, as mentioned, a zero-day path traversal vulnerability. It has no CV assigned. So Horizon 3 published further information on 4 vulnerabilities that were identified and patched in 2023. But in addition to this, they also detailed this new zero-day path traversal in FortiWLM that could allow a remote and authenticated attacker the ability to read any log file on the system. And this could give access to logs that contain the session ID of all authenticated users on that device. And they note that using this path traversal vulnerability in a chain alongside another CV from 2023, this could allow for remote code execution. However, from a search looking into kind of potentially exposed devices and what this sort of attack service looks like, from the image there, it looks like the FortiWLM isn't widely used on the internet, which is rightly so, really. So it appears to be only 9 internet-facing devices at this time, which perhaps explains why it was kind of almost a footnote almost in some of the research. And the services provided by FortiWLM shouldn't require to be internet-facing. So it's recommended that any existing or future instances of that product remain internal-facing only. So that was it for Fortinet. Just moving on to next story. So research has been released by Checkpoint surrounding a cluster of vulnerability exploitation. They've grouped together under the actor Magnet Goblin that they identify as, and we're tracking that internally as KTA 297. The group quickly exploited a number of one-day vulnerabilities to deploy their Nerbian series of malware. And the one-day vulnerability is which is known with a patch available but is exploited very shortly after patch release, making it unlikely that organizations can patch in time. And the vulnerabilities that they targeted included those affecting Magento, Kalic, Sense, and recently the Avanti Connect Secure exploitations. And among the campaigns, there are links based on a mixture of the shared infrastructure among those campaigns, as well as common malware families used. And those includes Nerbian Wrap, the Credential Stealer Walkwire, and the publicly available tunneling tool Ligalo. From our open source and internal IOC collection, we've identified additional correlations exist between a malware family used by Magnet Goblin or KTA as 297 and a recent Screen Connect compromise. See the kind of correlation sort of boxed in green on the right there. So it's a realistic possibility that the same actor could have also exploited this recent Screen Connect vulnerability. However, this is kind of low confidence, and this is really due to, firstly, that there's only limited correlations, just a few correlations between the activities there. But also, kind of more importantly, I think, is the malware that is being linked between the campaigns is this Ligalo, which I mentioned before. It's a publicly available reverse tunneling tool, so it's more likely that different threat actors are using the common tool set across similar exploitation campaigns. So to sum up, really, for recommendations, as these one-day vulnerabilities by nature are exploited before patching can take place, it's really important to maintain a good kind of general cyber hygiene to minimize potential impacts. So Kroll has 10 essential cybersecurity controls, which we recommend to follow, and we've linked that in the report itself. So please do go have a look at those. And that's all for me. I'll hand back to you, Keith.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Do appreciate it. Now let's dive into our Malware Chronicles with Dave Truman. Dave?
Thank you. ICENOVA is a relatively new malware, first discovered in late 2023. It's a loader class of malware and has been attributed to the developers of ICEID. The notable similarities with ICEID are its functionality for encrypting strings as well as sharing network indicators. It is written in C, and for C2, it uses RC4 encryption, which is then encoded within base 64 and sent over HTTP or HTTPS. The loader can execute exe files or DLL files and shellcode. Initial access is normally achieved via a phishing email with a recent campaign using thread hijacking. This indicates the actor pivoted to another victim after a business email compromise. Execution within this campaign relied on a user clicking a link. The link would take the user to a fake Azure download page, serving up a malicious JavaScript file. The actor's use of thread hijacking makes this process more reliable due to the establishment of trust between the two legitimate entities. Once executed, the JavaScript maps a network drive to a remote file share using WebDAV and instigates an MSI exec process to install a package located there. In this case, the final ICENOVA payload is a DLL file that is executed via run-DLL32, though exe files are also documented to exist. Persistence is maintained via a scheduled task that calls the payload from a directory under app data roaming. The directory name of custom_update has been used multiple times for this malware. Rules that might help with the detection include looking for scheduled tasks calling EXEs or DLLs from app data roaming, looking for scheduled tasks created containing directory names custom_update, looking for run DLL executing DLLs from within app data roaming, looking for wscript spawning MSI exec.exe, looking for wscript mapping and unmapping network drives in quick succession, and looking for MSI processes with UNC network paths or file URLs following the /i parameter. Thank you, Keith.
Thanks, Dave, for the detailed review of ICENOVA. Appreciate that. Now, let's go to the ransomware expert, Sarah Becker. Sarah, so much always going on here. So much stuff. But I think I heard the word Lockbit. Is that true?
That is true, Keith. More talk about Lockbit. Oh, this must have been wrong slide, so apologies. We'll go over this real quick. But Lockbit has arrested an affiliate, and excuse me for the pronunciation of this name, Mikhail Vasiliev. He is a Russian-Canadian cyber criminal who obviously was involved in many of Lockbit's high-profile attacks. He has been sentenced to 4 years in prison by an Ontario court for being an affiliate of the ransomware group. Additionally, for that, he was ordered to pay $860,000 in restitution towards the victims. He was initially arrested in November of 2022 and pleaded to at least 8 charges, pleaded guilty to those charges in February of at least this year. The charges included mischief, weapons offenses, and cyber extortion. The third actor, Vasiliev, he assisted in carrying out all of these various cyber attacks by Lockbit, and most of the victims from these ransomware group attacks were based in the Canadian states. His lawyer claims that he became a threat actor actually during the pandemic and is now claiming to claim responsibility for his actions finally. So the justice that was on this case, Michelle First, she labeled him as a cyber terrorist and stated that his acts of conducting these cyber attacks are part of his coldly calculated, as quoted, greed-driven crimes. So again, not only is he going to be serving time and paying out restitution to his victims, he's also going to be facing extradition to the US, where he's likely to receive additional charges. So that's our update for one of the Lockbit affiliates receiving jail time.
Awesome story for a successful end. I love it. I love it. Thank you very much, Sarah, for the amazing work and cutting edge intel. With that, and this was not planned, but today is National Awkward Moments Day. So maybe having the wrong slide up there for this type of a briefing may show exactly what that means. So the day is that every person can relate to. We all have had our awkward moments from time to time. They're part of life. They just happen. Like when either you put a new slide up and it's not the right one, or when you wave and someone waves back to you and then you realize, wait, they're not waving to me. Yeah, that has never happened to me, of course. But just remember, no one's perfect ever, not even Mary Poppins. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone that's taken the time to tune in to today's Kroll's weekly cyber threat intelligence briefing. We hope you found this session informative. If you have any follow-up questions about this briefing or any other questions pertaining to cybersecurity or risk, please contact the team at cti@kroll.com. If interested, go ahead and forward some of your awkward moments, and we'll maybe post them on our next briefing. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope everyone had a great St. Patrick's Day yesterday. Take care.